Hey guys, welcome back. Okay, so this game was actually made by the same devs who made the Rambo video game, which was so spectacularly bad, just look at it. And when they were making a Terminator game, the expectations were as low as they could get. But then something crazy happened, people actually played it and kinda sorta liked it. Anyways, let's start with its story, cause this is where I feel like they understood the assignment. Cause this is where it immediately grabs you, but only if you're an actual Terminator fan. It completely ditches the timeline of the later movies, it ignores T3, it ignores Salvation, it ignores Genesis, and it ignores Dark Fate. So the narrative takes place nearly 30 years after Judgment Day. And you play as a new character, Private Jacob Rivers. Now Jacob is a soldier in the Resistance's Pacific Division, but he doesn't stay there for long. Cause at the start of the game, his entire unit gets killed by Skynet forces, leaving him as the only survivor. And this is a fantastic opening cause it immediately strips you of any power, you aren't playing as John Connor leading an army, you're just a grunt running for your life. So you stumble across a ragtag group of survivors hiding in the ruins. And this is also where the game introduces its hub-based narrative structure. So you meet a really diverse mix of people, there's Jennifer and her little brother Patrick who are just trying to survive. There's Ryan, a mechanic who constantly talks about life before the bombs fell and misses his brother Tucker. You also have Colin, a scavenger who only looks out for himself, and Erin, a nurse holding on to the hope that her husband is still alive somewhere out there. Okay, so eventually you link up with a tech comm unit led by Commander Jessica Barron. Barron is this hard-ass, no-nonsense leader who kinda operates directly under John Connor. She takes your civilian friends in, giving them shelter in the Resistance bunker, but it becomes very clear that she views human lives as expendable assets in the war against the machines. The tension between Jacob wanting to protect his friends and Barron wanting to win the war at any cost is a major driving force of the plot. And to make matters worse, you find out that Skynet has a hit list, which includes John Connor, Commander Barron, and you. So Skynet knows you're important to the future even if you don't know it yet, and they send an infiltrator specifically to hunt your ass down.
I think that might be it.
Good enough for me.
Ceasefire! Ceasefire! Target down! I repeat, target down!
Anyways, along the way you also cross paths with a weirdly helpful dude known only as the Stranger, who randomly pops up to save your life and drop cryptic warnings. And it doesn't take a genius to figure out the time travel shenanigans here, but the game executes it nicely. You eventually meet a guy named Dr. Edwin Mack who has kinda figured out how to hack Skynet's network and reprogram their forces. Yes, so this is the exact origin story of how the Resistance manages to send a reprogrammed T-800 back in time to protect young John in Terminator 2. So anyways, you literally gotta steal a Terminator CPU for Dr. Mack so he can make it happen. And the way the writers mix Jacob's story into an already established canon is nothing short of brilliant. But I believe the best part of the story is how your choices kinda dictate the ending. So throughout the game, you build trust with other characters through dialogue and side quests. But getting the good ending is kinda tricky and almost counterintuitive. So as you approach the final assault on Skynet's central core, you're warned by that same Stranger that the Resistance shelter is gonna be attacked and everyone inside will die. So if you want to save your friends, you literally gotta force them to leave the safety of the bunker before the attack happens. You gotta lie to Erin about her husband being alive to get her to leave. You have to snitch on Ryan to the quartermaster so he gets kicked out for being unable to fix a vehicle. And you gotta just convince Jennifer and Patrick to hit the road. Cause if you play the nice guy and tell everyone to stay safe in the base, they simply get massacred by Terminators. And in the finale, after you help Connor destroy Skynet's time displacement equipment, you find out the Stranger was actually a future version of Jacob Rivers from a previous timeline. But that was just so painfully obvious. You're then given a choice. Step into the time machine to go back and guide your past self completing the time loop, or refuse to go back trusting that someone else will do a better job and breaking the cycle. It's a pretty satisfying conclusion that I feel respects the no fate but what we make vibe far better than any of the recent movies did. Also, you even have a choice of romance in the game, which kinda caught me by surprise. Anyways, you can sleep with Commander Barron, which results in an awkward scene where she basically kicks you out of bed immediately after smashing and then literally says dismissed. Or you can pursue a much more genuine relationship with Jennifer, which feels far more organic to the story. The choices actually matter, and seeing the ending montage play out based on who you saved and let die gives the game a surprising amount of emotional weight. It is without a doubt the best Terminator story we have gotten in 30 years.
Nice shot. Now get the cover until it returns to the scanning routine.
Alright, let's pivot and talk about its graphics, cause like this is a really interesting mixed bag that you have to look at with some nuance. If you're looking at it purely from a technical standpoint, especially now in 2026, it's undeniably rough. It was built on Unreal Engine 4, but a lot of the texture work and the character models look like they were ripped straight out of a late Xbox 360 or an early PS4 game. The facial animations during dialogue sequences are kinda stiff, the lip syncing is bad, and the draw distances in the larger areas can be pretty poor. Also, it's masked heavily by depth of field and volumetric fog. Like, it clearly didn't have AAA budget, and it shows in almost every single cutscene. However, I feel like what the game lacks in raw graphical fidelity and polygon count, it absolutely makes up for in art direction and atmosphere. The devs kinda nailed the aesthetic of the James Cameron Future War so perfectly that you almost immediately forgive the low-res textures. Like when the sun goes down and you're sneaking through the ruins, the game looks incredible. And they recreated that blue-tinted nighttime aesthetic really well. Seeing the red optics of a T-800 while HK aerials sweep their searchlights over the rubble is terrifying in the best way possible. And the machines themselves look immaculate. The chrome on the endoskeletons reflects the environmental lighting beautifully, and the sheer scale of the T-47 mechs makes you feel small and vulnerable. And we can't talk about the atmosphere without giving a huge shout out to the sound design, cause like the audio in this game carries the experience hard. Like the music kicks in at exactly the right moments, which raises the tension up to 11. And then there are the sound effects that are again really well done. The heavy thud of a Terminator walking towards you, the terrifying whine when they spot you, and the sound of the plasma rifles are all spot on. Like when you're hiding behind cover and you hear that iconic pew-pew of a plasma rifle, you feel like you're in the movie. But yeah, it looks a bit janky and dated at times, but the audiovisual vibes are immaculate, especially if you're a Terminator fan. Not gonna lie, when I first heard of it back then I thought it was gonna be a linear run-and-gun Call of Duty clone. But it's actually a semi-open world shooter that kinda borrows its structure from Fallout games and also kinda similar to Metro Exodus. Like the game drops you into these explorable areas and basically says, alright then, go scavenge. So then like you spend a large chunk of your time creeping through places looking for crafting materials, ammo, and tradable stuff. And since it has very light RPG elements, you gain XP for doing literally everything, killing robots, completing side quests, crafting medkits, and picking locks. And speaking of lockpicking, they like copied the exact lockpicking minigame from Fallout and Skyrim. I mean, it's a one-to-one recreation, but the hacking mechanic? Oh man, the hacking minigame is literally just Frogger. You're essentially playing a 1980s arcade game to hack into the most advanced AI on the planet. Anyways, as you level up, you get skill points to dump into a fairly basic skill tree divided into combat science and survival. The only skill that is completely dogshit is stealth. Don't put a single point into stealth. Cause like the AI in this game is pretty dumb, and even on the higher difficulties, their vision is pretty bad. But the pacing here is pretty decent, to be honest. Like when you start out, you're weak as shit. You have a pistol, an Uzi, an M16, and a pump-action shotgun, which all fire standard ballistic rounds. Like these weapons are fine for dealing with the smaller machines like the annoying spider scouts and the flying drones, but do zero damage to the Terminators. And when you encounter your first T-800 in a hospital, it straight up becomes a survival horror game. You can't fight it, like you gotta creep around and pray the awareness meter doesn't fill up. Cause if it spots you, you either run like hell or you throw a pipe bomb to knock it on its ass long enough to escape. It actually makes the Terminators feel like the way they were always meant to be. But then later on you finally get your hands on plasma weapons. And once you get these plasma weapons, the gunplay kinda opens up and actually becomes viable. Like you can now suddenly stand your ground, but you still gotta be careful and methodical in your approach. And this brings us to the weapon upgrade system, which uses these Skynet microchips. So like when you blow up a Terminator, you can loot its chips. And these apply buffs to damage, fire rate, and mag size. Like to upgrade your plasma rifle, you gotta slot 3 chips into the gun so that the connectors match up in a complete circuit. But it forces you to hoard chips and constantly tinker with your loadout to build the ultimate robot killing weapon. So like turning Skynet's own weapon tech against them is incredibly rewarding. But is the enemy AI a bit brain dead? Yeah, they mostly just walk slowly towards you while shooting, and you can easily abuse their basic line of sight programming. But not gonna lie, that rigid march is exactly how Terminators act in the movies, so the dumb AI actually ends up feeling weirdly lore accurate. Okay, so in an era where every major publisher wants to trap you in a live service grindfest, this game is a breath of fresh air. If you just mainline the story, you can roll credits in about 9 hours. But if you're like me and want to explore and complete all the side quests to get the good ending, you're looking at around 13 to 14 hours. And I believe it's the perfect length, like it ends right before the gameplay loop starts to get stale. However, the difficulty is definitely a mixed bag. Like if you play on the normal difficulty, the game eventually becomes way too easy. The early game stealth is tense, sure, but once you unlock the plasma rifles and put high-tier damage chips into them, you basically turn into an absolute unit. And the abundance of crafting materials means you have a billion medkits and pipe bombs. It kinda robs the late game encounters of their tension. So naturally you might think, I'll just crank it up to extreme. Well, be careful what you wish for. Cause in hard or extreme, the enemy AI doesn't magically get smarter, but instead the enemy just turns into bullet sponges while making you incredibly fragile. And on extreme, a single burst of plasma fire will instantly put you in a critical health state. And it turns the combat into a very tedious slog. Plus, the stealth becomes really unforgiving because the machines spot you almost instantly. But still, I highly recommend playing it on hard to maintain that survival horror tension all the way through. So here we are in 2026, and if you look at this game purely on a technical level, it doesn't look good. Like the graphics are dated, the character models are kinda bad, the AI is nothing special, and the voice acting ranges from passable to downright comedic. And if you have no attachment to the Terminator franchise, then this isn't for you. But if you're a fan of James Cameron's original movies, this game is a goddamn revelation. Like it's a clunky, low-budget love letter to a dead franchise, and I absolutely love it. So if you haven't played it yet, do yourself a favor, wait for a sale and grab it. Anyways, thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you in the next one.